So I'll say this for a pandemic. It keeps me looking for silver linings. This, for example, this. We can't meet in person, can't have Sunday school the way we did in the before times, but not, let me rephrase that. It is still at least as important as ever that we show and teach the youngest members of this community what it means to be a community of faith. Pandemic forces us to figure out what that means. So this morning, a presentation in 3 parts. What, why, and how, because this is probably as close as I'm ever going to get to having a public radio show. What is faith? Why should we teach it? How do we teach it? Part 1. What is faith? Ambrose Bierce, in the Devil's Dictionary, offers this definition. Faith, he writes, is belief without evidence in what is told by one who speaks without knowledge of things without parallel. Amusing, cynical, a definition I think a lot of UUs can resonate with. And see, that's the trouble with clever, cynical remarks. By making us feel clever, they give us an excuse to not think deeply about the things that discomfort us, like faith. Faith in the daily discourse of this nation is all wrapped up in belief, and mostly belief in God. And that seems to be what makes UU so skittish about it. So I want to make 2 points here. The first of which is, so what? So what if so many people find the core of their faith in their belief in a higher power that some of us as UUs don't understand or even think exists? Why should their sincere belief keep us from embracing faith in our own way, of exploring what faith means for ourselves and for the kids that are part of this community? Why does their faith need to define our faith in any way? And second, faith is not merely belief. As the introduction to a UU middle school curriculum that we used at the church maybe a decade ago explains, faith includes beliefs, but it is much more. Faith can be defined as making meaning. Faith also includes finding purpose in our lives, determining what is right and what is wrong, knowing what is true about life and the universe. Faith is about what we trust and what we most value. Unsurprisingly, since it came from a UU curriculum, that is pretty UU-ish. A bit vague, doesn't pin anyone down too much, shouldn't make anyone too uncomfortable, but it gets us somewhere. It's a definition of faith that embraces not only traditional religion, but our religion. It's a definition we could build into our worship and into our religious education. But I am a lawyer, and I like my definitions to be more, defining. Doug Mutter, writing in the UU World, struggled with that same issue. Ultimately, he kind of gave up. But in his surrender, he stumbled upon a definition of faith that, in the end, I really like. He writes this: like any experience, like sweet or red or comfortable, faith can't be grasped through definition. All you can do is describe situations where the experience might be had and hope that those who have had it will recognize it. So faith isn't simple. It isn't measurable, and it defies definition. And that's okay. In fact, it's kind of awesome in sort of the literal sense of the word awesome. And that brings me to point 2. Why? Why teach our children about something we can't even define? To think about their own faith, to embrace faith as part of their lives. And this one, the answer is a lot easier for me. And the answer is because it's not like there's a choice. Faith is in our lives whether we like it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we think about it or not. It is tied up in everything we do. Our 7th principle to me is the greatest expression of this. The interdependent web is about the strings that connect people one to another, and it's about faith we have that other people will hold up their end of the string, or maybe pick up our end when we just can't hold it right now. Looked at that way, almost everything we do is an act of faith because it permeates the world and it depends on what other people are doing. So we work out of the faith that we will get paid. We drive out of the faith that other drivers will stay in their lanes and stop at stop signs. We make lives with loved ones in faith that they will hold our hearts as dear as we hold theirs. Are we always right? Of course not. Do we have any reason to be certain we'll be right? Absolutely not. That's why it's faith. It's stepping into the uncertain, knowing it's uncertain, and not falling into panic or denial. And we have to do it to live our lives. Last week, Reverend Laura spoke about Sophia Lyon-Faz, who might be called a UU patron saint if we had saints of religious education. And she had an underlying philosophy. We wish children to come to know God directly through original approaches of their own to the universe. And look, I know a lot of UUs don't like the G word, but whether we use that particular word or not, whether we think of God as a separate thinking force in the universe or not, we are creatures of belief. As Sister Joan Chittister writes, everybody believes in something. There is no such thing as an age of unbelievers. Some believe in self-determination, and some believe in God the puppeteer. Some believe that reality is a mirage, and some believe that scientific reality is all there is. Some people believe in a God of wrath, others a God of love. But underneath all of them, there is one constant. Whatever we believe at the deepest center of our being determines what we ourselves become, even when we say we believe in something else. Why teach kids to contemplate faith? To think about how they will live faith? Because they will have a faith in something, regardless of what we do. The question is whether they will ponder that faith, take it out and look at it, consider it, and choose it, or unthinkingly let it choose them. As Sister Chittister put it, it is the kind of God in which we choose to believe that in the end makes all the difference. And as James Luther Adams, a UU theologian, put it, an unexamined faith is not worth having, for it can only be true by accident. But consider what can happen when we take that faith and hold it up to the light.
Maybe something beautiful, how art transformed a neighborhood. In the heart of a gray city, there lived a girl who loved to doodle, draw, color, and paint. Every time she saw a blank piece of paper, Mira thought to herself, maybe. And because of this, her room was filled with color, and her heart was filled with joy. On her way to school one day, Mira gave a round apple to Mr. Henry, the owner of the shop down the street. She gave a flower to Ms. Lopez, the lady with the sparkling eyes. She gave a songbird to Mr. Sachs and a red heart to the policeman who walked up and down the streets. On her way home, Mira taped a glowing sun onto the walls hiding in the shadows. Her city was less gray, but not much. The next day, Mira saw a man with a pocket full of paintbrushes. He gazed at the wall. He looked at her son. He held his fingers up in a square and peered through them. He said thoughtfully. What do you see? Mira asked. Maybe something beautiful, the man replied. Then, just like that, he dipped a brush in the paint. Bam! Pow! The shadows scurried away. Sky blew out through the gloom. The man's laughter was like a rainbow spreading across the sky. Who are you? Mira asked. I'm an artist, he said. A muralist. I paint on walls. I'm an artist too, she told him. He handed Mira a brush. Then come on. Mira dipped it in the loudest color she saw. Yowee! The wall lit up like sunshine. As the man drew pictures on the bricks, Mira added color, punch, and pizzazz. Soon, Mr. Sachs joined in. Then came others. Everyone painted to the rhythm. Salsa, merengue, bebop. Even Mira's mama painted and danced the cha-cha-cha. The whole neighborhood became a giant block party. Until the policeman walked up. Excuse me, he said. The music stopped. Mira put her brush down. They were surely in trouble. The officer cleared his throat, then paused. May I paint with you? He asked. So Mira handed him a paintbrush, and the music started again. Teachers and papas jumped in, babies too. Mira and the man handed out brush after brush. Color spread through the streets. So did joy. Wherever Mira and the man went, art followed like the string of a kite. After they colored the walls, they painted utility boxes and benches. They decorated sidewalks with poetry and shine, and everyone danced. Together, they created something more beautiful than they had ever imagined. When their clothes were splattered with a million colors, everyone sat down to rest, except the muralist. His eyes sparkled. You, my friends, are all artists, he told them. The world is your canvas. He smiled wide, then pulled everything together in big, sweeping motions. His paintbrush was like a magic wand. When he finished, Mira added one more bird way up in the sky. Maybe, she thought, just maybe.
Maybe, just maybe. There is so much hope and possibility and faith in a child's smiling maybe. Now, Sophia Faz pioneered liberal religious education in this country. She did it because she believed that we have a duty to empower children to think about their faith, to embrace it, to challenge themselves and us in the way they think about meaning. And she did it because she feared that if we don't give kids those tools, then we would, as she wrote, court a cynical atheism when the child is old enough to learn for himself. Now, I think, given her beliefs, Faz was mostly worried about the atheism part of that. I'm not. Well, I am, kind of, because I think the word atheism is often used as a sort of shallow, nearly meaningless cop-out of a concept, but that's an entirely different sermon. I'm more worried about the idea of children in this church growing up to be a cynical anything. Without some structure, without the tools and vocabulary to explore that childish capacity for devotion that Reverend Givens spoke of in this morning's reading, many children, maybe most, just give up on the whole thing. I mean, it's not just our faith that is losing children as they become young adults. It's happening across faiths. The kids, if we don't give them these tools and the energy to explore them and encourage it, they just start to doubt that sense of awe that they naturally have. They bury it. They even learn to belittle it. And the tragedy is that we are losing such a golden opportunity for the kids, sure, but for us, because for children, nearly everything is still a mystery. And that sense of faith and awe and of the possible comes easily. We could use that help, folks. You, my friends, are all artists, the muralist told the people who, sparked by a child's imaginings, dared to see the possibility of a brighter, more colorful, more beautiful world. The world is your canvas. Why teach faith? So the children, the kids that we all know, can see the world as their canvas. And so they can remind us that it's our canvas too. And so we reach my final point. How do we teach that faith? And maybe more specifically, how do we teach it in a pandemic? Well, let's start with an old idea.
Sometimes it takes a child. Let's go back for a second. Sometimes it takes a child to make a village. We all have a place in the village, a job to do, and a lot to learn. Kids don't come with instructions, but neither do grown-ups. Every child needs a champion, or two, or three, or more. And the right tool to get the job done. Every family needs help sometimes. Kindness and caring and sharing matter. Playing matters too. And resting, because the world is in a hurry, but children are not. The village needs every one of us to help and every one of us to believe in each other. Children are born believers and citizens too. Let us build a village worthy of all children.
So how do we teach faith? We do it together. And we look for new ways. Last year I spoke here, right, possibly literally in this very spot in my house, about how the pandemic has forced on us the opportunity to think about how we church. Well, it also gives us the need to think about how we religiously educate, because those two things are, or they should be, inextricably intertwined with each other. Teaching our children about faith is not distinct or separate from church. It is one of the ways we church, how we minister to them and to each other, and honestly, how they minister to us. And I think maybe we've lost track of that in this pandemic. Understandably, we've had a lot to worry about. We have to remember that children are as much a part of this beloved community as the grown-ups. Not just give lip service to the idea, but embrace it. Act on it. So, okay, we haven't been as good about that in the pandemic so far as we could have or should have been. So now we do better. And so as we rethink how we church, we're starting to reimagine what religious education can mean. It isn't just Sunday school. That's easy enough to see now through the lens, see what I did there, of a pandemic. But even outside the pandemic, when this is all done, maybe it's more than that. And for some kids, it may never be Sunday school at all. So what can we do? Well, honestly, we're still figuring that out. Amy and I and Reverend Laura and Lisa have been meeting to come up with ideas of how we can embrace all of the kids in the congregation again as part of this community. And one step in this was asking families and children what they may want. We've sent out a couple of emails, and we're still starting to get some responses to the most recent one. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with several parents and several kids who weighed in, which was fantastic. Here's some of what we brainstormed as ideas. Some of the kids are really interested in just being able to get together on an online server of some kind and play Minecraft or Roblox, games that I've heard of but don't really know anything about myself, but I don't have to. And we've got Ben Stelmach has agreed that he will help sort of guide that process. So we've got somebody already ready to work with some of the kids who want to take that and run, which is fantastic. There's an interest in playing virtual versions of tabletop games. Near and dear to my heart, there are some kids who are interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons. I am perfectly happy to use that game to help kids explore imagination and all sorts of things and help raise another generation of geeks. We can connect individual kids with the adults in the congregation, and there are lots of ways we could do this. For some kids, that might be having a pen pal in the congregation, just exchange some notes and some pictures or something like that. Maybe it's a book club with kids' books that 2 or 3 people can get together and just talk over Zoom. Maybe it's phone calls. It's going to be different for every kid. That's great. There's all kinds of interest in coming up with ways to do art projects in this separated time, finding a way to do them safely in a pandemic, with ideas like maybe each kid would do a piece of a story or a book and then ship it on to the next one, and somebody adds on their piece, and then it goes on to the next until they all build a story together. Maybe we find a way to do a show and tell and show art, between the kids. There's an idea of doing a Lego challenge, which I'm personally interested in engaging in as a 51-year-old kid. Somebody suggested we do a Flat Stanley or rename him Flat Michael and send him around to everybody and have pictures in their neighborhoods and share all of that, maybe through the church Facebook page. There's all sorts of things we can start to do. We have members of this congregation with all kinds of talent that they could share. Art, teach art, teach cooking, or just pull people together to cook together over Zoom. Write a song together. The idea has been thrown out of writing a song for each of the 7 principles. Amy and I are willing to help with that, but there's lots of musicians in this congregation that are more talented than I am that could help the kids with that. Maybe do a play. One thing that Amy and I have learned through our theater company is you can do plays online and they can work pretty well. We're talking about doing socially distanced outdoor activities. We've got something planned for February 20th at the church. We'll look for more, especially as the weather gets better. There's this idea of those of us who don't have kids, maybe adopting a family to sort of stay in touch with. So what you hear here is a lot of ideas. We hope to do as many things as we can. I mean, Sunday mornings, Amy and I are doing, mostly Amy's doing, I'm just around to listen to the stories. We're doing a story time at 9:30. All kids are welcome. Age range is probably 3 to 7 for the stories, but frankly, I love the stories. So any kids are welcome. And we're only getting 2 or 3 at that. That's fine. We don't expect any one of these things to attract all of the kids in this congregation. But we are hoping that every child in this church finds a way to be drawn into at least some of this, to be connected in 1 or 2 ways, to know that they too are part of this beloved community. So what's your role in all of this? Fundamentally, it is connecting, respecting, it is showing and seeing. It is making sure the children in this faith community know in their hearts, they feel in their bones that they are woven into this church community. Now, that was easier to do when we could meet in person. And we will do that again. I have faith. But in the meantime, more than anything, that connection, that reinforcing our little section of the interdependent web is what those of us who are working on sparking religious education again, that's what we hope for. Because once we envision that village, once we start really living into it, there are so many possible pathways that can open up. And so the question that I pose to you here and now is, what will you do to help teach faith to our kids? And I'm not asking for you, I'm not going to take down notes and commit you to anything, but I really want you to think about, what will you do? Not as a theoretical construct necessarily, but as a commitment, as part of this community. And that doesn't mean you have to be a teacher. It doesn't mean, there may be such small things or what feel like small things to you. But, as Michelle Jarvie wrote to me recently, the little things really are the big things. So what can you do? We'll open it up to all of you. We've got a comment from Elizabeth Strutman that she has some children's books that would be good for children, or Black History Month. That's great. Sharing story ideas is wonderful. Thank you. I see Katie Johnson waving her hand.
So I have a couple of ideas, which I'm just churning, but I am part of the generosity team, and we have a couple of what we think are going to be exciting and interesting fundraisers coming up, kind of replace the auction. And I think actually all of them have a sort of a child friendliness about them. And so I will, as we work on that, I will encourage us all on our team to really look at those ways that some of the youth can participate in those.
Lynn had her hand up.
Valentine's Day is coming up. I wonder if we could send Valentines to our kids.
Oh, that would be great.
If it'd be really helpful to have a list of all the children so we don't miss any.
We have that. That's yeah. I still like getting real mail. Kids really like it. Anyone else willing to dare a few ideas? I was warned that I might be putting you as on the spot with this, and I kind of intended to do that.
Chad?
Yes, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh yeah, I put in the chat that the adults could send greeting cards to the kids. So that goes hand in glove with what Lynn's talking about.
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be great. And I see in the chat, Pamela loves the idea of Valentine's, and she thought of doing some nature talks. I know we've got kids that would love that. Fern, for example, it comes to our story time. She is super into birds. She would be so psyched to have that connection. And I love, Pamela, that you're thinking ahead after COVID, doing actual nature walks. let's dream ahead, folks. We're going to be done with this. And I see John Price interested in helping with the song. That's fantastic. I was kind of hoping to rope you into that, John.
This is Beth Strutman.
Mhm.
A number of the kids might be tech savvy enough that they've already done it, but it would be fun to help them make their own little emoji of themselves. Those are kind of fun to do.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah, I think a lot of the kids would dig that. I'll come to that.
They probably have already made their own. They would teach
Oh,
us.
they can make new ones.
That I was thinking, they probably have. Maybe
Or
we
they
could have
could-
one for adults.
You
Or
know, and
kids
maybe
could
the
teach
kids can
us.
help us make ours.
Yeah, the kids could teach us.
There's a lot to be gained from that.
Yeah.
Jack,
Yes.
no idea is to have a kid write Valentine's to shut-ins at a nursing home or healthcare facility. And be they can't show up.
I'm not sure if that's just on
And-
my end, but I can't hear what's being said there.
I
Neither
can't-
can the rest of us.
I think is that Bruce on the phone? So I think we've got a bad connection there, Bruce. Elizabeth has in the chat that she raises and breeds monarch butterflies. Oh, that would be great. Kids would be super psyched by that. Deb Schneider, a multi-generational way to help the community, maybe working with Seika. And that is definitely something that came up, is finding a way to do social justice. Maybe, if, an adult or two gets paired with one or two kids, and if these pen pal things pan out or whatever, finding ways to do those. So it's not necessarily getting everybody to do something in a big activity, but, one great way to show what our faith means in the world, because it means this to so many of us, is acts of kindness in the world, of social justice, and sharing that with kids. If we can find ways to do it in a socially distanced, safe way now, great. And then someday other things. So yes, absolutely.
Hey, Chad, this is Polly.
Hey, Polly.
I'll help you guys with that song.
Fantastic. Yeah.
More about the song. What's that about?
Well, it's a little more than a notion at the moment, but it came out of a little bit of a discussion at the first story time Amy and I did about coming up with either one song that encompasses all the principles, or I was really ambitious when I first came up with it. I really shouldn't be trusted to think that early in the morning, but a different song for each principle. And we'll record them from separate places. And then John and I both have experience playing with recording software, so we can put the stuff together. My goal would be to have some things that we could play for services or for coffee house or something at some point. What I can guarantee out of it is it will be adorable. I make no promises as to the musicianship, although if I have John and Polly helping, the quality just went up.
That may be what Bruce was trying to say.
Could be. And I'm
Jump
hoping
in.
that we can get him involved too. So
I kind of think Bruce was trying to say send violins to different shut-ins people, whether it's in the congregation or in the population general. But I think that's what he was getting at.
well, that's interesting too. Okay.
Jamie's trying to say something.
I see Jamie weighing in on the song too. Good. This might turn into a choir number. I've got some ideas. All right, I've got some ideas percolating. You guys are helping already. This is great. All right. All right. Well, I think we will wrap this discussion up there for now. Don't let this be the end of the discussion. Please reach out to me or Amy or Laura or Lisa if you have ideas. If you just think you want to help in some way but aren't sure what you can do, let us know, because if we're going to do this sort of one-on-one or small group thing, we're going to need as many hands reaching out as possible.